What I'd like to talk about today and focus on is what I believe is the next big step forward. And I'm going to call it extended collaboration, because I'm not really talking about how do we get a team of 5 people to work together more effectively, how do we accomplish better teamwork. I'm talking about how do we use the kind of technologies that are available today to enable people of wide reaches, distant places, to come together around ideas, to share information, to put the best of what they have to offer to the purposes of your organization. These new technologies, as we all know, do a lot of marvelous things. Most of us probably use them pretty widely in our personal lives. We've learned to tweet, we've shared photos on Facebook, we've gotten used to the kinds of things that these technologies can do to make our personal lives richer. But most of us, I would suggest, haven't even scratched the surface of how these technologies can change the way we work. We've spent the last 10 years getting to know them in our personal lives, and we're just now beginning to get serious about how to really leverage them in substantial ways within our companies. A couple of years ago, I used to talk to groups and have lots of pushback about this whole idea. Executives who would say, we're never going to have that in my company. That technology is not going to happen. I don't like it, I don't want people using it, etc. Today, I would argue that train's left the station. Those things are going to happen. They're coming. If you don't have them in your company, you will soon. And the question is not, will there be a different level of performance? The question really is, will you be among the leaders to obtain that? I would argue that companies that we think of when we look back in 50 years or our children look back in 100 years as icons of this century will be ones who have mastered something about how to mobilize intelligence. They will have figured out what it takes to really get the intelligence of people infused into everything they do in their organization. Whether that's using one's particular knowledge in the best service of the organization, whether it's combining 2 different people with 2 different types of knowledge in ways that come up with new and innovative ideas, whether it's about harnessing the smallest units of knowledge, as Google is showing us how to do, and to create business value out of those tiny pieces of information. Whatever it is, the companies who will be icons this century will be ones that know how to do this. And again, I would suggest if I gave you, again, another blank piece of paper and ask you to design an organization that is optimized around leveraging knowledge, that you design a very different type of organization. It would look quite different. The dominant processes, the dominant capabilities would be quite different than the ones you would have designed for that quantity, quality, and cost organization of the past. And so the heart of our challenge, I believe, as HR leaders, is to help our organizations begin to evolve from organizations that were optimized for last century's challenge to ones that are ready to meet the challenge of this century. How many of you have ever caught yourselves saying this to your children? If you want me to treat you like an adult, you better act like an adult. I think I might have said that a couple times. Well, I think the inverse really is what we should be thinking about today in companies. I think if you want me to act like an adult, you need to treat me like an adult. I think this community of adults idea is at the basis of forming this new relationship of trust. If you want your employees to act like adults, and I would suggest increasingly you do not want them to follow instructions rotely. You want them to think, you want them to create, you want them to use their own initiative. You want them to decide what information should be shared with whom. You want them to be thinking about the betterment of the enterprise throughout every action they take. Those are adult activities. And if you want your employees to act like adults, to take that initiative, you better treat them like adults. That can come in a lot of different ways. You can think about it in terms of issues of time and place. In some businesses, I know some businesses you have to be in a certain place and time. But think about stop measuring time or monitoring the place that people work, if possible. Think about it in terms of how you define task and role. Break work into projects. Encourage people to rotate roles and take on different projects over time. Think about it in terms of how you define the work approach. Specify only the things that are non-negotiable, the principles that people have to live with, and let them have the creativity to invent within those boundaries the way to get work done most effectively. Particularly with your younger employees, I think you'll be astonished at some of the out-of-the-box ways they'll come up with to get something done that you and I may have thought there was only one way to get done up till now. Individual careers, offer them options and choices. Determination of fare, make the arrangements transparent. This particular role pays this amount, or however else you feel would be the best way to do it. You've all heard the Best Buy example, but I think it's probably the best one out there, at least certainly the first one out there, of a company that gave up on time and place and told people that all they cared about were the results. You get the results done, you can do it for as long as it takes to get those results done at any place you want to do it. It had a marvelous effect on their discretionary effort. Engagement levels skyrocketed as they adopted this approach. I'm a big fan of Deloitte's work in mass career customization. I think it really is an appropriate reflection of helping people have choice about their individual career path. Now, what Deloitte has done is given people choice about the intensity with which they want to work at any given point in time, so that people who have, I don't know, want to go to school nights or have small children they need to care for, whatever it is, whatever reason, doesn't matter, can choose assignments that have less travel, maybe less intense time commitments, for a period of time while that condition exists. And then when that condition changes, they can choose a more difficult, more complicated, more travel-intensive assignment, if that's what they'd like to do. It gives them the choice to decide how to vary the level of intensity within their own careers. Meaning is the new money. If you're looking to turn people on to work harder, to invest more discretionary effort, I mean, money's nice, you can always give me more, but the best thing to do to get me excited is to infuse more meaning into the work that I'm doing. So engagement is no longer, I would argue, never should have been, and certainly shouldn't be going forward, about adopting a best practice. There's no best practice for engagement. It's not about trying to be a little bit of all things to all people. Let's be neutral. Let's have just a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and maybe with that way we can kind of get everybody sort of okay. Nobody's going to be thrilled, but nobody's going to be really upset. That's not going to work. Engagement going forward is about digging deep inside your own organization and crafting who you are. What's your uniqueness? What is the meaning of being part of your organization? And attracting and retaining people who care about that meaning, who get excited about that. If you're about stability and calm organization, I'll tell you there's people out there who crave that. If you're about excitement and adrenaline and change, there's people who are junkies for that kind of stuff. Figure out who you are and craft an experience which reflects that. And excel in the specific things, do a lot of, in other words, the things that really match the values that you have as an organization. Engagement is a strong sense of what it means to work here in this organization. And I like to say it's about giving people goosebumps.